What up, pimps? FOMC day, baby. 30 seconds till the shit hits the fan. Oh, Spy's ripping already, boys. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. What's happening? What's happening? What the fuck's going on? What's happening? Did it go down? This volatility real time, folks. Holy moly. Oh! Oh! It's dumping! This stream is lagging out. What's going on? "75 basis points! Yes! They did it! Calls! They did it! They did it, boys! Oh fuck, it's already ripping. Why is this shit lagging so bad? What is happening? This stream is lagging out, man. There's so many people trying to watch it. Hello? Dude. Dog. Bro, what is happening? This is weird. This is so weird. What's happening? Because I'm live streaming? Oh shit. Bro, I can't. What is happening? What the fuck is going on?
Is the Fed? What is the Fed?
The Federal Reserve.
Wow, this is crazy. The fucking live stream's glitching out. What is going on? I'm talking on my stream. I'm fucking streaming. This is like a big deal. Yeah, I know, right? Can't wait for her to leave. Whoa, fix is spiking. Shit. Oh. Just a little nibble. Just a little bit. But I gonna tank? We gonna tank? What's happening? You got. Unbelievable. Looks like it was a tank from all along. The whole time it was gonna be a tank. Semis are tanking. Oh my god. Video straight into the fucking trash. Holy shit balls. AMD straight down. Come on, man. Shut up, Squash. Come on. Here we go, Spy. Here we go. Here we go. Come on. Slip daddy a little nip. Come on, baby. Kitty. He just sits right there and fucking yells at us. And there she goes. And here you go. No green today, baby.
Hater.
Come on, man. Give us a little green. There we go. Market's supposed to like that. Chat. Let's see some poggers in chat, guys. The vibes are low. Seeing a lot of positive comments on here, guys. Let's go, baby! Pogu. I don't care. Here we go, Spy. Come on. Give us a little nip. Here we go. Let the bowls flourish. Three. Clown. Means in like 15 minutes. I mean, it already happened. They already announced the rate hike, 75 basis point. So, Powell talks in 15. 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Here we go, Spy. Now we're ripping a little bit. Just got one call for now. Alright, I think the market would like the 75 basis point. Let's see what Powell says. If he comes out and says, yeah, we fucked up and we're going to do 75 every meeting from here on out, I don't know. I think the market would at first shit itself a little bit, but actually show the Fed is trying to stop inflation. Which it appears they haven't really been trying very hard. Bada bing, bada boom. Damn. There's just something under there? It's like, I thought I saw something under there. Guess not. Oh, Katie.
Like a little baby.
He's okay. He's a little baked.
All the time. You're a fat baby.
Smokable. Whoa, what a fucking sell-off on MS.
He's kinda cute.
Yeah. Peterson Connell. Peterson Connell. My TikTok account just keeps getting followers for whatever freaking reason. I don't understand it. They gotta be bots. I'm up to like 100 followers, and they're all women. It just gotta be like fake. Jealous? Oh my word.
He's a cute guy.
Where is this going, dude? And it's going down. It's going down for real. It's going down for real. Come on, man. Pick a direction. Kill this thing. Any direction at all. Come on. Rude. Oh my gosh. What the fuck? What was that, Vix? Good God. Why is the spy not moving? Uh-huh, honey. Let's actually a lot of spy calls getting bought. So much NASDAQ. What's Apple looking like? Sort of bullish. AMD. Jesus. Jesus. Jesus Christ. Alright, 4 minutes to Powell. Come on. He's not dumb. Trying to teach him how to what? Oh, of course. He just thinks it no longer exists. He shakes his head like it's some alive being. Hmm. Good God.
I'm just a baby.
Strange.
Just a baby.
Good afternoon. I will
Here we
begin
go.
with one
Pals
overarching
talking.
message. We at the Fed understand the hardship that high inflation is causing. We're strongly committed to bringing inflation back down, and we're moving expeditiously to do so. We have both the tools we need and the resolve that it will take to restore price stability on behalf of American families and businesses. The economy and the country have been through a lot over the past 2.5 years and have proved resilient. It is essential that we bring inflation down if we are to have a sustained period of strong labor market conditions that benefit all. From the standpoint of our congressional mandate to promote maximum employment and price stability, the current picture is plain to see. The labor market is extremely tight, and inflation is much too high. Against this backdrop, today the Federal Open Market Committee raised its policy interest rate by 0.75 of a percentage point and anticipates that ongoing increases in that rate will be appropriate. In addition, we are continuing the process of significantly reducing the size of our balance sheet. I'll have more to say about today's monetary policy actions after
So
briefly
they're doing
reviewing
75
economic
basis
developments.
points from here on out, baby. Oh, shoot.
Overall economic activity edged down in the first quarter as unusually sharp swings in inventories and net exports more than offset continued strong underlying demand. Recent indicators suggest that real GDP growth has picked up this quarter, with consumption spending remaining strong.
Oh.
In contrast, growth in business fixed investment appears to be slowing, and activity in the housing sector looks to
Yeah,
be
spice
softening,
dropping.
in part reflecting higher mortgage rates. The tightening in financial conditions that we've seen in recent months should continue to temper growth and help bring demand into better balance with supply. As shown in our summary of economic projections, FOMC participants have marked down their projections for economic activity, with the median projection for real GDP growth running below 2% through 2024.
Shit.
The labor market has remained extremely tight, with the unemployment rate near a 50-year low, job vacancies at historical highs, and wage growth elevated. Over the past 3 months, employment rose by an average of 408,000 jobs per month, down from the average pace seen earlier in the year, but still robust. Improvements in labor market conditions have been widespread, including for workers at the lower end of the wage distribution, as well as for African Americans and Hispanics.
Spy. Let's see, do we get a
Labor
bump?
demand is very strong, while labor supply remains subdued, with the labor force participation rate little changed since January. FOMC participants expect supply and demand conditions in the labor market to come into better balance, easing the upward pressures on wages and prices. The median projection in the SEP for the unemployment rate rises somewhat over the next few years, moving from 3.7% at the end of this year to 4.1% in 2024, levels that are noticeably above the March projections. Inflation remains well above our longer-run goal of 2%. Over the 12 months ending in April, total PCE prices rose 6.3%, excluding the volatile food and energy categories. Core prices rose 4.9%. In May, the 12-month change in the Consumer Price Index came in above expectations at 8.6%, and the change in the core CPI was 6%. Aggregate demand is strong. Supply constraints have been larger and long-lasting than anticipated, and price pressures have spread to a broad range of goods and services. The surge in prices of crude oil and other commodities that resulted from Russia's invasion of Ukraine is boosting prices for gasoline and food, and is creating additional upward pressure on inflation. And COVID-related lockdowns in China are likely to exacerbate supply chain disruptions. FOMC participants have revised up their projections for inflation this year, particularly for total PCE inflation, given developments in food and energy prices.
Shit, food and energy prices.
The median projection is 5.2% this year and falls to 2.6% next year and 2.2% in 2024.
Hey.
Participants continue to see risks to inflation as weighted to the upside. The Fed's monetary policy actions are guided by our mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. My colleagues and I are acutely aware that high inflation imposes significant hardship, especially on those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. We are highly attentive to the risks high inflation poses to both sides of our mandate, and we're strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% objective. Against the backdrop of the rapidly evolving economic environment, our policy has been adapting, and it will continue to do so. At today's meeting, the committee raised the target range for the federal funds rate by 0.75 of a percentage point, resulting in a 1.5 percentage point increase in the target range so far this year. The committee reiterated that it anticipates that ongoing increases in the target range will be appropriate. And we are continuing the process of significantly reducing the size of our balance sheet, which plays an important role in firming the stance of monetary policy. Coming out of our last meeting in May, there was a broad sense on the committee that a 0.5 percentage point increase in the target range should be considered at this meeting if economic and financial conditions evolved in line with expectations. We also stated that we were highly attentive to inflation risks and that we would be nimble in responding to incoming data and the evolving outlook. Since then, inflation has again surprised to the upside. Some indicators of inflation expectations have risen, and projections for inflation this year have been revised up notably. In response to these developments, the committee decided that a larger increase in the target range was warranted at today's meeting. This continues our approach of expeditiously moving our policy rate up to more normal levels, and it will help ensure that longer-term inflation expectations remain well anchored
Okie
at 2%.
dokie. Spies accumulating.
As shown in the SEP, the median projection for the appropriate level of the federal funds rate is 3.4% at the end of this year, a percentage point and a half higher than projected in March, and 0.9 percentage point above the median estimate of its longer run value. The median projection rises further to 3.8% at the end of next year,
Dang,
and
calls getting
declines to
bought.
3.4% in 2024,
Sorta.
still above the median longer run value. Of course, these projections do not represent a committee plan or decision, and no one knows with any certainty where the economy will be a year or more from now. Over coming months, we will be looking for
Look at the
compelling
size of
evidence
that
that inflation
call
is moving
order,
down,
bro. What?
consistent with inflation returning to 2%.
9 o'clock.
We
Oh, here we go,
anticipate that
Spy.
ongoing rate increases will be appropriate. The pace of those changes will continue to depend on the income
Yeah,
data
here we
and
go.
the evolving outlook for the
Okay,
economy.
okay. We're break even on
Clearly,
these.
today's 75
Damn it, I
basis
should've bought the
point
dip.
increase is an unusually large one, and I do not expect moves of this size to be common. From the perspective of today, either a 50 basis point or a 75 basis point increase seems most likely at our next meeting. We will, however, make our decisions meeting by meeting, and will continue to communicate our thinking as clearly as we can. Our overarching focus is using our tools to bring inflation back down to our 2% goal and to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Making appropriate
Buyers, here
monetary
we go,
policy in this
buyers.
uncertain environment requires a recognition
Yeah.
that the economy often evolves
It was
in
always
unexpected
red
ways.
to green, baby.
Inflation has obviously surprised to the upside over the past year, and further surprises could be in store. We therefore will need to be nimble in responding to incoming data and the evolving outlook. And we will strive to avoid adding uncertainty to what is already an extraordinarily
Ooh, that was a
challenging and
fucking
uncertain time.
rip.
We were highly
Look at that rip,
attentive
baby.
to
Look
inflation
at that volume, too.
risks and determined to take the measures necessary to restore price stability. The American economy is very strong and well positioned to handle tighter monetary policy. To conclude, we understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Howard Schneider with Reuters. Two related questions. Chair Powell, did you feel you boxed yourself in with the language you used at the last press conference on 50 basis point hikes in June and July? And would you please give us as detailed a sense
nibble
as you
on one
can
more.
of
I'm
what
buying
role
another.
you played in reshaping market
Ah, shit,
expectations
it's
so
up
quickly
long
on
right
Monday?
now. Fuck. See what these questions are.
So, as you know, we always aim to provide as much clarity as we can about our policy intentions, subject to the inherent uncertainty in the economic outlook, because we think monetary policy is more effective when market participants understand how policy will evolve, when they understand our objective function, our reaction function. And in the current highly unusual circumstances with inflation well above our goal, we think it's helpful to provide even more clarity than usual, again, subject to uncertainty in the outlook. So, and I think over the course of this year, financial markets have responded and have generally shown that they understand the path we're laying out. Of course, it remains data dependent, and so that's what we generally think about guidance, and that's why we offer it. And of course, when I offered that guidance at the last meeting, I did say that it was subject to the economy performing about in line with expectations. I also said that if the economy if data came in worse than expected, then we would consider moving even more aggressively. So we got the CPI data and also some data on inflation expectations late last week, and we thought for a while, and we thought, well, this is the appropriate thing to do. So then the question is, what do you do? And do you wait 6 weeks to do it at the next meeting? And I think the answer is that's not
All right,
where
we're
we
tapping
are
that
with
key
this.
level. We
So
got to take that back.
decided we needed to
380.
Go ahead. And so we did. And that's really how we made the decision.
Okay, Gina?
Thanks for taking our questions. Gina Smilik with the New York Times.
Yeah, come on,
You-
baby. Keep it up.
I guess I wonder if you could describe for us a little bit how you're deciding how aggressive you need to be. So obviously 75 today. What did 75 achieve that 50 wouldn't have? And why not just go for a full percentage point at some point?
Sure. So if you take a step back, what we're looking for is compelling evidence that inflationary pressures are abating and that inflation is moving back down. And we'd like to see that in the form of a series of declining monthly inflation readings. That's what we're looking for. And by this point, we had actually been expecting to see clear signs of at least inflation flattening out and ideally beginning to decline. We've said that we'd be data dependent, focused on incoming data, highly attentive to inflation risks, the things that I mentioned to Howard moments ago. So contrary to expectations, inflation again surprised to the upside. Some indicators of inflation expectations have risen, and projections of this year have moved up notably. So we thought that strong action was warranted at this meeting, and today we delivered that in the form of a 75 basis point rate hike, as I mentioned. So what was the point of it really is this. We've been moving rates up expeditiously to more normal levels. And over the course of the 7 months since we pivoted and began moving in this direction, we've seen financial conditions tighten, and appropriately so. But the federal funds rate, even after this move, is at 1.6%. So again, the committee is moving rates up expeditiously to more normal levels, and we came to the view that we'd like to do a little more front-end loading on that. So I think that the SEP gives you the levels that people think are appropriate at given points in time. This was really about the speed with which you would get there. So as I mentioned, we 75 basis points today. I said the next meeting could well be about a decision between 50 and 75. That would put us at the end of the July meeting, in that range in that more normal range, and that's a desirable place to be because you begin to have more optionality there about the speed with which you would proceed going forward. Just talking about the SEP for a second, what it really says is that committee participants widely would like to see policy at a modestly restrictive level at the end of this year. And that's 6 months from now. And so much data and so much can happen. So remember how highly uncertain this is. But so that is generally a range of 3 to 3.5%. That's where people are. And that's what they want to see, knowing what they know now and understanding that we need to show resolve, but also be flexible to incoming data as we see it. If things are better, we don't need to do that much. And if they're not, then we either do that much or possibly
380
even more.
broken.
But in any case, it will be very data dependent. Then you're looking at next year, and what you're seeing is
We filling
people
a gap?
see a bit
Oh
more
yeah, we
tightening
getting to the
in
gap
a range
fill.
of maybe
Oh
3.5
baby,
to
we got the
4%.
gap
And
fill
that's
coming
generally
up.
what people see
Look at the gap goes
as
all the way to
the
389. If
appropriate
that
path
fills halfway to that,
for
shit
getting
my
inflation
pants.
under control and
Let's
starting it
go.
back down and then getting back down to 2%. So 75 basis points seemed like the right thing to do at this meeting, and that's what we did.
Steve?
Steve Leisman, CNBC. Thank you for taking my question, Mr. Chairman. You have not used the phrase in a long time, monetary policy is in a good place, which is a phrase that you used to use often. Now that the committee
Yeah, no shit,
is
dude.
projecting 4% or 3.8% next year in terms of the funds rate, which is similar to where the market is now, the futures market of 4% funds rate next year, do you think that's a level that is going to be sufficiently high enough to deal with and bring down the inflation problem? And just as a follow-up, could you break that apart for me? How much of that is restrictive, and how much of that is a normal positive rate that ought to be embedded or not, in your opinion, in the funds rate? Thank you.
Sure. So the question really is, how high does the rate really need to go? And this is, the estimates on the committee are in that range of 3.5% to 4%. And how do you think about that? Well, you can think about the longer run neutral rate. You can compare it to that, and we think that's in the mid-twos. You can look, frankly, at broader financial conditions. You can look at, asset prices. You can look at the effect you're having on the economy, rates, asset prices, credit spreads. All of those things go into that. You can also look at the yield curve and ask all along the yield curve, where is the policy rate? So for much of the yield curve now, real rates are positive. That's not true at the short end. At the short end of the yield curve in the early years, you don't have you have negative rates still. So that really is one data point. It's one part of financial conditions. So I think I have to look at it this way. We move the policy rate, that affects financial conditions, and that affects the economy. We have, of course, rigorous ways to think about it, but ultimately it comes down to, do we think financial conditions are in a place where they're having the desired effect on the economy? And that desired effect is, we'd like to see, demand moderating. Demand is very hot still in the economy. We'd like to see the labor market getting better in balance between supply and demand. And that can happen both from supply and demand. Right now, demand is substantially higher than available supply, though. So we feel that there's a role for us in moderating demand.
Come
Those are
on,
the
we
things
got a
we
whole
can affect
380
with
spy.
our policy
Don't
tools.
fail on
There are
us
many things we
now.
can't affect.
Come on, baby.
And those would be, the things, the commodity price issues that we're having around the
Sellers
world due
taking
to the
profit.
war in Ukraine,
Maybe.
and the fallout from that, and also just all of the supply side things that are still, pushing upward on inflation. So that's really how I would think about it.
But this 3.8%, 4% get it done, does it get the job done of breaking the back of inflation?
I think it's certainly in the range of plausible numbers. I think we'll know when we get there, really. I mean, honestly, that would be, you would have positive real rates, I think, and inflation coming down by then. I think you'd have positive real rates across the curve. I think that the neutral rate is pretty low these days. So I would think it would, but you know what? We're gonna find that out empirically. We're not going to be completely model driven about this. We're gonna be looking at this, keeping our eyes open and reacting to incoming data, both on financial conditions and on what's happening in the economy.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks. Nick Timmeros of the Wall Street Journal. Chair Powell, you've said that you like your policy to work through expectations, and now obviously this decision was something quite different from how you and almost all of your colleagues had set those expectations during the intermeeting period. And I know you just said that what changed was really the inflation data, the inflation expectations data, but I'm wondering, on the inflation expectations data, was there something you saw that was unsettling enough to risk eroding the credibility of your verbal guidance by doing something so different from what you had socialized before?
So if you look at we look at a broad range of inflation expectations. So you've got the public, you've got surveys of the public and of experts, and you've also got market-based. And I think if you look across that broad range of data, what you see is that expectations are still in the place, very much in the place, where short-term inflation is going to be high, but comes down sharply over the next couple of years. That's really where inflation expectations are. And also, as you get away from this episode, they get back down close to 2%. And so this is really very important to us that remain the case. And I think if you look for most measures, most of the time, that's what you see. If we even see a couple of indicators that bring that into question, we take that very seriously. We do not take this for granted. We take it very seriously. So the preliminary Michigan reading, it's a preliminary reading. It might be revised. Nonetheless, it was quite eye-catching, and we noticed that. We also noticed that the index of common inflation expectations at the board has moved up after being pretty flat for a long time. So we're watching that, and we're thinking, this is something we need to take seriously. And that is one of the factors, as I mentioned, one of the factors in our deciding to move ahead with 75 basis points today was what we saw
it's
in
only up
inflation
$20.
expectations.
But
We're
that AMD one,
absolutely
that hurts.
determined
That's
to
up a
keep
hundo.
that
Ah.
anchored at 2%.
Whoa, go
The
crazy.
other was just the CPI reading.
So if you saw a movement like that again, another tick up in inflation expectations, would that put a 75 or even 100 basis point increase in play at your next meeting?
I'll just say we're going to react to the incoming data, and appropriately, I think. So I wouldn't want to put a number on what that might be. the main thing is to get rates up, and then pretty soon we'll be in an area where we're, I think, as you get closer to the end of the year, you're in a range where you've got restrictive policy, which is appropriate. 40-year highs in inflation. We think that policy is going to need to be restrictive, and we don't know how restrictive. So I think that's how we'll take it.
Hi, Chair Powell. Neil Irwin from Axios. Thanks for
What?
taking
Now
my
it's
questions.
dropping.
The late-breaking kind of decision to go to 75 basis points, do you worry that that will make policy guidance a less effective tool in the future? And should we think of that as a kind of symmetrical reaction function if we start to get soft readings on inflation, or if the labor market starts to roll over?
To take your second question first, yes. I mean, I think we're resolved to take this on, but we're going to be flexible in the implementation of it. Sorry, and your question was guidance. So again, the overall exercise is that we try to provide as much clarity about our policy intentions as we can, because we think that makes monetary policy work better. It's always a trade-off, because you have to live with that guidance. And so you do it, and it helps a lot of the time. I frankly think this year has been a demonstration of how well it can work. With us
Beheaded. Are we
having
gonna
really
test
just
that
done
EMA?
very little in the way of
If
raising
we test that, that'd be
interest
378.
rates.
I don't
Financial
know. It's
conditions
looking
have
like a
tightened
rejection off
quite
that level,
significantly
man.
through the expectations channel, as we've made
What do we
clear
do,
what our
chat?
plans are. So I think that's been a very healthy thing to be happening. So, and I would hope that it's always going to be any guidance that we give is always going to be subject to things working out about as we expect. And in this particular situation, we're looking for something specific, and that is progress on inflation. We want to see progress. We want to see inflation can't go down until it flattens out, and that's what we're looking to see. And if we don't see that, then that's the kind of thing that will cause, even if we don't see progress for a longer period, that could cause us to react. But we will soon enough. We will be seeing some progress at some point, and we'll react appropriately to that too. But I would like to think, though, that our guidance is still credible, but it's always going to be conditional on what happens. This is an unusual situation to get, some data late during blackout, very close to our meeting. Very unusual to one that would actually change the outcome. So I've only seen, in my 10 years plus here at the Fed, I've only seen something like that, even close to that, 1 or 2 times. So I don't think it's something that'll come up a great deal.
Colby.
Oh my
Thank you
gosh,
so much for
but
taking
now
my
you're really gonna
questions.
sell
Colby
off
Smith
on
with
us.
Financial Times.
Come
On
on
the clear and
now.
convincing threshold for
Oh,
the
tapping
inflation
EMA, we're gonna
trajectory,
bounce. I think
what
that
is
might
the
be a
level
bounce,
of realized
boys.
inflation,
I think we
that meets
grab
that
another.
criteria? And how is the committee thinking about the potential trade-off of much higher unemployment
Come
than
on,
even
fill me.
than even what's forecasted in the SEP if inflation is not moderating, at this acceptable pace?
So the second part I didn't get.
If what's the potential trade-off with higher unemployment?
Couldn't
than
get filled
even
on the
what's
first
forecasted
one, but
in the
that's all right.
SEP
I think
if
we
inflation
bounce.
is not moderating at an acceptable pace?
Right. So what we want to see is a series of declining monthly readings for inflation, and we'd like to see inflation headed down. So, and right now our policy rate is well below neutral, right? So, soon enough we'll have our policy rate. Let's assume the world works about like the SEP says. The policy rate will be up where we think it should be. And then the question
Got
would
some
be,
profit takers.
do
We
you slow
retest
down?
the
Does it
EMA.
make you,
Now we
are
go
you
back.
making these judgments about
Now we get
is it
back up.
appropriate now
Now we
to
get back
slow
up.
down from 50 to 25.
Back
let's
on
say,
up.
or
Come
speed
on.
up. So that's the kind of thinking we'll be doing, and again, we're looking. Ultimately, we're not going to declare victory until we see a series of these. Really see convincing evidence, compelling evidence that inflation is coming down, and that's what I mean by. That's what it would take for us to say, okay, we think this job is done, because we saw, and frankly, we saw last year, inflation came down over the course of the summer and then turned right around and went back up. So I think
we're here sitting around entry.
declaring victory. But
That could not have been the only move up, baby. Come on.
Flexible and sensitive to incoming data.
Are you more concerned now that to bring down inflation, it's going to require more than just some pain at this point?
So again, I think that I do think that their objective, and this is what's reflected in the SEP, but our objective really is to bring
I
inflation
think we
down to
rip
2%
after Powell's done talking.
while the labor market remains strong. I think that what's becoming more clear is that many factors that we don't control are going to play a very significant role in deciding whether that's possible or not. And there I'm thinking, of course, of commodity prices, the war in Ukraine, supply chain, things like that, where we really can't. The monetary policy stance doesn't affect those things. So, but having said that, there is a path. There's a path for us to get there. It's not getting easier. It's getting more challenging because of these external forces, and that path is to move demand down, and you have a lot of surplus demand in take for example in the labor
Alright, we're
market.
testing VU up in the 21.
You have two
And
job
it's still going
vacancies
down.
essentially for every
My God.
person actively
This is why you
seeking a
take
job.
profit.
And
Holy
that has
moly.
led to
I
a
guess that
real
was the move to take
imbalance
profit on,
in
folks.
wage negotiating. You could
There's
get
going to
to
be
a
no
place
trend today.
where that ratio was
I don't
at
sell
more
on a
normal
spike, so I'm
level,
gonna
and
wait.
you would expect to see those wage pressures move back down to a level where people are still getting healthy wage increases, real wage increases,
wait.
but at a level that's consistent with 2% inflation. So that's a possibility, and you could say the same thing about some of the product markets where there's just excess capacity.
Sure, this candle
And,
closes. We got
you know,
power
where
hour
where
soon.
the strong demand has
Cannot
gone
imagine
into
it's a sell-off
where
in the
there's-
power
where
hour.
there's clear
That's
capacity
just
constraint,
crazy.
right? So you have effectively what we think of as a vertical supply curve or close to it. So demand comes in and it's very strong, and it shows up in higher prices, not higher quantities, not more cars, because they can't make the cars because they don't have the semiconductors. So in principle, that could work in reverse. When demand comes down, you could
buyers
see,
off the
and
EMAs,
it's
off
not
VWAP.
guaranteed, but you could see prices coming down more than the typical economic relationships that you see in the textbooks would suggest, because of the unusual situation we're in on the supply side. So there's a pathway there. It is not going to be easy, and you know again, it's our objective, but as I mentioned, it's going to depend to some extent on factors we don't control.
Rachel.
Hi, Chair Powell. Thank you for taking our questions. Rachel Siegel from the Washington Post. So the new
Ask a nice
projections
question.
show the unemployment rate ticking up through 2024. Is a higher unemployment rate necessary in order to combat inflation? And what is lost if the unemployment rate has to go up and people lose their jobs in order to control inflation? Thank you.
So you're right. In the SEP, we have unemployment going up to 4 point. The median is 4.1%. There are, of course, a range of actual.
All right, we're holding the
forecasts.
EMAs, but
And I would characterize that if you were to get inflation down to, you know, on its way down to 2%, and the unemployment rate went up to 4.1%, that's still a historically low
good God,
level.
this is like, of
You know, we
course,
hadn't
they're gonna
seen- we
jack
hadn't
around
seen
each
rates,
side.
unemployment rates below
Should have just taken my
4%
profits at the top. I knew
until
it.
a couple
I
years
knew it.
ago for-
But hey,
we'd seen it
maybe
for
we go
like
back up.
1
Up,
year
up,
in
up,
the last
up.
50. So the idea that 3.6% is historically low in the last century. So a 4.1%.
I know they're just playing
unemployment rate
games. I
with
know they're playing games out
inflation
here.
well on its way to 2%.
It was always them playing games, baby. Under pressure.
So we're not looking
We
to have a
perform.
higher unemployment rate, but I would say that I would certainly look at
Sure,
it
we
as a
perform under
successful
pressure, baby.
outcome.
Come on. Take that level back. Oh, next leg higher, baby. Come on.
We don't seek to put people out of work. Of course, we never think too many people are working and fewer people need to have jobs. But we also think that you really cannot have the kind of labor market we want without price stability.
Volume.
And we have to
Gotta
go back and
have
establish price stability so we can
volume.
have that kind of labor market. And that's a labor
Or,
market where
come on, power hours. Always ripping the power hour,
workers
baby.
are getting wage increases. Maybe the workers at the lower end of the spectrum are getting the biggest wage increases, as they were before the pandemic, where participation is high, where there's lots of job opportunities, where it's just a really, I mean, the labor market we had before the pandemic that's what we want to get back to. And you see, you know, disparities between various groups at historic lows. We'd love to get back to that place. But to get there, it's not going to happen with, you know, with the levels of inflation we have. So we have to restore that.
Let's go. I'm willing to let these fuckers go to zero. I don't care if I take a $300 loss today, really.
Kind of labor market we want, and
I'm pretty confident we rip.
Hi, Chair
It wants to
Powell.
play
Matthew
games
Wilson with
before
Bloomberg.
then, so be it.
So, as you just mentioned, the committee is now projecting a 0.5 percentage point rise in the unemployment rate and the SEPs over the next couple years, and it removed a line from its policy statement about thinking that the labor market can remain strong while it tightens policy. You just mentioned that that is still your objective, though, so I'm wondering if you could explain why that line was removed from the statement, and also whether this means the FOMC is trying to induce a recession now to bring inflation down.
Not trying to induce a recession now. Let's be clear about that. We're trying to achieve 2% inflation consistent with a strong labor market. That's what we're trying to do. So let me talk about that sentence. Clearly, it's our goal to bring about 2% inflation while keeping the labor market strong, right? And that's kind of what the SEP says. That the SEP has inflation getting down to a little above 2% in 2024 with unemployment at 4.1%. So, and this is a strong labor market. This is a good labor market. And as I mentioned, there are pathways to do it. But those pathways have become much more challenging due to factors that are not under our control. Again, thinking here of the fallout from the war in Ukraine, which has brought a spike in, you know, prices of energy, food, fertilizer, industrial chemicals, and also just the supply chains
anywhere
more
would
broadly,
be
which has
fantastic.
been larger and longer lasting than anticipated. So
drink
the
some water.
sentence that we deleted said that we believe that appropriate monetary policy effectively alone can bring about the result of 2% inflation with a strong labor market. And so much of it is really not down to monetary policy. The sentence isn't, it kind of says on its face that monetary policy alone can do this. And that just didn't seem appropriate, so we took the sentence out.
And given the new projections for the unemployment rate, could you talk a little bit about what accounts for, you know, such reduced confidence against, say, a month ago or 3 months ago that inflation will largely normalize on its own as these supply side issues get worked out? Thanks.
Don't give us a shooting star here.
I think you've seen, again, we've been expecting progress.
Here we go. Come on.
We didn't get that. We got
the
sort
dip,
of the opposite.
baby.
So I also
Buying the
think the
dip.
situation, really since the, you know, the consequences of the Ukraine war become more and more clear, what you're seeing is the situation getting more difficult. And you look around the world. I mean, lots of countries are looking at inflation of 10%, and it's largely due to commodities prices. But all over the world, you're seeing these effects, and so and we're seeing them here. Gas prices, you know, all-time highs and things like that. That's not something we can do something about. So that is really. And by the way, headline inflation is important.
All right, bouncing off the EMAs. Come on.
The public's expectations.
Come to daddy.
Why would they be distinguishing between core
sweet talk
inflation and headline inflation?
Maybe.
Core inflation is something
off
we
that
think about
fucking,
because it is a better predictor of future inflation. But headline inflation is what people experience. They don't know what core is. Why would they? They have no reason to. So expectations are very much at risk due to high headline inflation. So it's become, the environment has become more difficult, clearly, in the last 4 or 5 months. And hence the need for the policy actions that we took
pal,
today.
quit talking.
Hence our resolution.
Let's let the market rip.
You know,
saying bad things. The market wants to go up, but you keep
and
fucking it up.
Get them to where we think they need to be.
It wants to.
In coming months.
Thanks, Chair Powell. Edward Lawrence with
Dump by
Fox
now
Business.
if it wanted to.
I want to ask you, you talked about CPI going to 8.6%. The retail sales surprised the market by falling, and then revisions to the previous months were down. Are you hearing from contacts about consumers slowing spending or changing their habits?
So we're, of course, watching very, very carefully for that, and looking at the retail sale, the big store numbers and all that kind of thing. And so, but I think the fair summary of what we see is you see continuing shifts in consumption. You see some things sales going down, but overall, spending is very strong. The consumer's in really good shape financially. They're spending. There's no
Patience
sign
will
of a
prevail.
broader slowdown that I can see in the economy. People are talking about it a lot. Consumer confidence is very low. That's probably related to gas prices, and also just stock prices to some extent for other people. But that's what we're seeing. We're not seeing a broad slowdown. We see job growth slowing, but it's still at quite robust levels. We see the economy slowing a bit, but still growth levels, healthy growth levels.
So then as you are raising rates in this economy, how closely are you watching consumer spending, or is there another indicator that you're watching?
Blow the fucking lid off her.
It would be hard to
Take
watch
that level back.
anything much
Take
more
it back.
closely than we watch consumer spending. But we watch everything. You know, we watch business fixed investment, which actually has softened a bit. You know, we're responsible for watching everything. But, you know, consumption is 60-some% of the economy, 2/3 of the economy. So naturally, we spend a lot of time on that. And again, there's a lot going on. There are a lot of flows back and forth. But ultimately, it does appear that the U.S. economy
Slow as
is in a
molasses.
strong
Are
position.
they just trying to theta decay
and
my
well
fucking contracts?
positioned
You
to
guessed
deal
it.
with,
That'd be
higher
why.
interest rates.
That would be the
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
slowdown.
Mike McKee from Bloomberg Radio and Television. Are you targeting headline inflation now or core inflation? In other words, how far would you chase
Ooh,
oil
VIX below
prices
30?
if
Come
they
on,
keep going up?
Spy.
If that's going to be the component
Get
that
going.
drives expectations, would you risk recession for a headline rate if the core rate is holding steady or starting to go down?
So we're responsible for inflation in the law, and inflation means headline inflation. So that's our ultimate goal. We, of course, like all central banks do, look very, very carefully at core inflation because it's a much better
Goodness, the
predictor.
uncertainty.
And it's a much better predictor of where inflation is going, and it's also
Certainty.
more relevant to our tools. As I mentioned, the parts that don't
it's
go
gotta
into
fill the
core are
gaps.
mostly outside the scope of our tools, so we look at that. But you know, the current situation is particularly difficult because of what I mentioned about expectations. We can't affect. Really, I mean, the energy prices are set by global commodity prices, and most of food, not all of it, but most food prices are pretty heavily influenced by global commodity prices too. Also, other things. So we can't really have much of an effect, but we have to be mindful of the potential effect on inflation expectations from headlines. So it's a very difficult situation to be in. And we can't do much about
Here we go, baby.
the difference between the elements that make up headline that are not in core.
Could I just, as a follow-up, get a clarification on the SEP? When the members gave their forecasts, when were they inserted into the record? Were they revised after the CPI or Michigan numbers came out? In other words, does the SEP as we have it now reflect the same factors that led you to go to a 75 basis point move?
The SEP is of one piece. It reflects all of the economic readings. It also reflects the 75 basis point increase. This is important. So people had that in hand
So
when
SPX wasn't even in the
their
cap.
SEPs were
Spy
submitted.
was.
So in other words, it's not in addition to what's in the SEP. The SEP, everyone's SEP
Just
reflects
holding that EMA, I guess.
their
I
thinking about
don't
this
really
rate
know
increase and what's going forward.
where market's headed. Nah.
Hi, Victoria Guida from Politico. I wanted to ask about how you're measuring progress, especially since you've
Oh, these
now,
contracts are just getting
started
bled by
front-loading
Theta,
it next
though.
more. You know, you've talked about how you want to see inflation coming down over a series of reports,
Volume
and I guess I'm curious
dropping on
whether you
'em,
think
VIX.
inflation data itself is a really good indicator, or whether you might be concerned that it's a
Whoa.
lagging
Whoa, whoa,
indicator,
whoa.
or that it might send confusing signals, given that, as you've talked about, there are sort of supply and demand aspects. And I guess my question is, do you think that inflation data will tell you when you've gone to where you need to go, or do you just feel like maybe it's better to overshoot than to undershoot?
So I think the role that we can play, maybe the way to get at it is to say that the role that we can play is around demand, right? So, and we'll be able to see the areas that we can affect are those that are associated with excess demand. And we'll be able to see our effect
Well, they're at
on,
break
for
even.
example, job openings.
Yep, that's what you.
in real
That's
time.
what
So
happens
we-
when you
and
just take the
that would
profit
tell
off
us
the
what's-
initial
that
move
would tell us
because
about
the
wages.
contract's
Wages
just
are
like
not principally
skyrocket,
responsible
and
for
now
the
you just get
inflation
like
that we're
stuck
seeing,
in
but
stuck in this
going
shit.
forward, they would be
You don't
very
want to be
important,
stuck in this
particularly
shit.
in the service sector.
I should have just taken it
So,
when I had it.
Sorry, I'm not sure I'm getting to your question.
My question is inflation data itself the best indicator for when you're getting to where you need to go, or might it lead you to go too far?
There's always a risk of going too far or going not far enough. And it's going to be a very difficult judgment to make, or maybe not. Maybe it'll be really clear. But we're quite mindful of the dangers. But I will say the worst mistake we could make would be to fail. It's not an option. You know, we have to restore price stability. We really do, because everything, it's the bedrock of the economy. If you don't have price stability, the economy is really not going to work the way it's supposed to. It won't work for people. Their wages will be being eaten up. So we want to get the job done. This inflation happened relatively recently. We don't think that it's affecting expectations in any kind of fundamental way. We don't think that we're seeing a wage price spiral.
Should have taken profit. Should have TP'd up here. That was a huge move I
generally
caught,
sees us
and
as
now I'm
very
just getting
likely to be
clapped
successful in
around.
getting inflation down to 2%, and that's critical. It's absolutely key to the whole thing that we sustain that confidence. So that's how we're thinking about it.
Hi, Brian Chung with Yahoo Finance. I just want to expand, I guess, on what you just said now about the general public feeling like, you can get this done. When you talk about consumer sentiment being down, household inflation expectations being up, recession just broadly being dinner table talk, does the general feel among American households and also businesses square with your explanation of the economy, given that the description of inflation in the statement didn't change between May and June? Thanks.
So clearly, people don't like inflation a lot, and many people are experiencing it really for the first time, because we haven't had anything like this kind of inflation in 40 years, and it's really something people don't like, and they're experiencing that, and that's showing up in surveys.
Another 21
and
tap,
all kinds
and a
of
bounce
ways.
off of it, I guess.
And
You
we
guys
understand
tell me,
that,
what do you
and
think?
We understand the hardship that
What do you
people
think, chat?
are experiencing from high inflation, and we're
Let's get some
determined to do
W's
what
in
we
chat.
can to get inflation back down. So that's really what we're saying.
Come
we're
on,
not, I'm
baby.
not,
Hold it.
Clearly,
Hey.
it's an incredibly unpopular thing, and it's very
Hold
painful
it.
for people. So,
Hey.
but I guess what I'm saying is the question, really critical question from the perspective of doing our job, is making sure that the public does have confidence that we have the tools and will use them, and they do work to bring inflation back down over time. It will take some time, we think, to get inflation back down, but we will do that.
Chris.
Thank you. Chris Rugaber at Associated Press. You have talked about inflation a few times and mentioned oil prices, China lockdowns. But aside from rises in commodity prices such as gas prices, we're also seeing stickier measures of inflation increasing, such as the Cleveland Fed's median and trimmed mean CPIs. I mean, how persistent do you see those underlying measures of inflation, and how do you expect to, and where do you see those going in the near future?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I think in my opening statement, the inflation has started off in quite narrow, very directly pandemic-related areas, and it's spread now broadly across the economy and into the services sector as well. It was really in the goods sector at the beginning. In particular,
Average
we're
down
seeing,
here, chat.
In travel now, if you've flown on a plane lately,
Throw my balls hang
planes are very
low,
full,
chat.
Plane tickets are very expensive. Some of that
I'm
will be
not
passed
sure.
through with energy
It's
prices, but
it's not looking
we're
great.
Experiencing services inflation. Shelter inflation is high. So, so the question, and you see the Cleveland measure going up, and many other measures are going up. So it's a time when we're not seeing progress, and we want to see progress, and that's really another part of why we did what we did today, and why
Just keep bouncing off this
the
point of
S&P looks
control.
like it does.
And this 21
Is
and
that
VWAP
we
on the
see
same
it
spot,
as,
bro. What
as
is going
appropriate
on?
to get the policy rate up
Go up
to
if you're going to go up,
restrictive
Spike.
levels, which would
Please,
be,
guys.
in the thinking of the committee, somewhere in the range of 3 to 3.5% by year end, and then after that, you see what the rest of the SEP says. So I hope that's responsive to your question.
Nancy.
Hi, Chair Powell, Nancy Marshall-Genzer with Marketplace. Do you still think a softish landing is possible, and how would you define that at this point, considering the revised projections for unemployment, GDP, inflation?
So I think what's in the SEP would certainly meet that test. You know, if you see, you're looking at getting back down to almost a 2% inflation by 2024, and the unemployment rate is still as low as 4.1%. That would be, I would call that as meeting that test. Do I still think that we can do that? I do. I think there's. I don't want to be the handicapper here. That is our objective, and I do think it's possible. Like I said, though, I think that events of the last few months have raised the degree of difficulty, created great challenges, and again, the answer to the question, can we still do it? There's a much bigger chance now that it'll depend on factors that we don't control, which is, you know, fluctuations and spikes in commodity prices could wind up taking that option out of our hands. So we just don't know. But we're focused on, very focused on getting inflation back down to 2%.
Come on, man.
Which we think is essential for the benefit of the public, and also to put us on a path back to a sustainably strong labor market like the one we had before the pandemic.
Greg.
Thank you. Greg Robb from MarketWatch. Chair Powell, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more. You know, economists
Just
are
keep
worried
wicking down to the 21 perfectly.
you're kind of hitting the economy
and then
with a
bounce up.
sledgehammer, and that now there's
And
even
wick
more
up.
risk of a
Just
recession
wicks on
than
every side.
than a
Complete dog
50-50
shit price
path of
action.
rates. So could you talk a little bit more about that, and what evidence would get you to stop rate hikes and maybe even reverse them?
Sure. So, as I mentioned, financial conditions have tightened over the last 7 months, and that's a good thing, we think. But the federal funds rate, even after this increase, is at 1.6%. So it's hard to see how that is too high of a rate. And even if we did another, you know, we're going to get here by the end of the summer somewhere in the twos probably. Still, that's still a low rate. So that's not a rate that is calculated to bring a recession on. And by then we'll have seen a whole lot more data. As I mentioned a couple times, the committee's views are
Smoke
around
weed every day.
a modestly restrictive stance, which would be in the 3 to 3.5% range by the end of this year. But that's you know, conditioned on that being the appropriate thing to do. If we see data going in a different direction, it'll be reflected in our policy, as you see today. You know, we'll be watching if things go in a direction we don't expect, then we're going to adapt. And I would say this is a highly uncertain environment.
This is so slow.
Extraordinarily uncertain environment. So again, we'll be determined and resolved, but flexible.
Okay, Evan.
Evan Reiser, Market News International.
All right, our bounce off to 21.
I was wondering if the Fed has initiated
Our
a review
bounce off
of the
to
conduct
9.
of monetary policy over the last 2 years or so.
Big wicks to the
given
downside.
inflation. And will that be shared with the
Stip
public?
is getting bought.
And then secondly, given the illiquidity and extraordinary volatility in financial markets, are you concerned that QT will make that worse?
Sorry, what was your question on QT?
Just given the illiquidity and extraordinary volatility in financial markets, whether QT will make things worse.
So, of course, we've been looking, you know, very carefully and hard at why inflation picked up so much more than expected last year and why it proved so persistent.
Gee, I wonder why.
It's hard to overstate the extent.
Turns out when you just throw money at the market
in that question
for 2 years
morning,
straight,
noon, and night.
inflation goes up. Crazy.
But you have
Alright,
to
SPY,
understand the context.
380, give it to us.
Really, the context
Come on,
is
it just
this.
keeps bouncing off 380.
You know,
Gotta hold
decades
380.
Before the pandemic
Gotta.
and the reopening.
Shit, I should have bought
you
one.
had a
Wow.
world where
Here we go.
inflation was dominated by
Oh.
disinflationary forces such as
Take that
declining
level back.
population or
Take it back.
aging demographics, let's call it that. Globalization.
Look at my contracts are hardly
enablement
even going up.
technology, Other factors, low
Fuck
productivity.
that.
So, and you know, that's how all the models work. It is, you know, decades and decades of data they look at that. It's a very flat Phillips curve work, and the supply shocks tend to be transient, right? So we have now experienced an extraordinary series of shocks, if you think about it. The pandemic, the response, the reopening, inflation, followed by the war in Ukraine, followed by shutdowns in China.
Come on, don't just tap off of that. Look at that. Wick's right up to that level perfectly and taps.
So we're aware that a different set of forces are driving the economy. We have been, obviously, for quite a while, that this is a different, these forces are different. Inflation's behaving differently. And in our thinking, it really is a question of very strong demand, but you couldn't get this kind of inflation without a change on the supply side, which is there for anybody to see, which is these blockages and shortages and
ever gonna be done
people
talking?
dropping out of the labor force and things like that. So
Mark just wants me to shut up at this point.
That's how we're looking at it. And you know, we've done a lot of work internally.
Stop saying scary things, pal. Just let the market go.
And thinking about what all that means. The thing is, you don't know whether those forces are, what extent are they going to be sustained? In other words, will we go back to a world that looks a little more like the old world, or are we really going to be in a world where major supply shocks go on and on?
World.
The history is you see these waves of supply shocks, as you did in the 70s, and then they go away, and you know, sort of there's a new normal and things settle down. But honestly, we don't know what that's going to be. In the meantime, we have to find price stability in this.
How are these contracts not going up right now? Like, are you kidding me? Now we're back at break even. Come on.
Inflationary forces.
Come on.
You're seeing them everywhere. Again, if you look around the world at where inflation levels are, it's absolutely extraordinary. It's not just here. In fact, we're sort of in the middle of the pack. Although I think we have of course a different kind of inflation than other people have, and partly because our economy is stronger and more highly recovered. So that's what we're doing. We've done a lot of introspection and work on that. And sorry, on QT. You know, we've communicated really clearly to the markets about what we're going to do there. Markets seem to be okay with it. We're phasing in. Treasury issuance is down quite a lot from where it's been. So
market's fine with
no
it.
reason to think
Market loves your QT.
Forward-looking, and they see
Here
this
we go.
coming. I have no
Come
reason
on.
to think it will lead to illiquidity.
Break that level. You
problems.
gotta hold it.
Seems to
Gotta
be
close that candle.
kind of understood
Gotta
and
close another
accepted
candle above it.
at this point.
Thanks. For the last question, we'll go to Mark.
Mr. Chairman, Mark
Damn it, I
Hamrick
should
with
have grabbed that
Bankrate.
dip down there.
Wonder what
That
your
would've been
assessment
nice.
is about the outlook for the housing market, given the years-long increase in home prices and now the
It was
sharp
always
rise in
green,
mortgage
baby.
rates.
It was always
and all
green.
that, of course, given the heightened sensitivity around the housing
that nice
market,
bold
given the fact
flag
that
and
it
then
was
a nice
a trigger
breakout.
for the great financial crisis over a decade ago. Thank you.
Sure. So rates were very low.
You look at these contracts.
Rates
I mean,
were very,
really.
very low for
I
quite
know
a
they
while
got way up here, but
because of the pandemic.
come on, I
and
grabbed
the-
another
and
one.
the need
P&L
to
isn't
do
hardly even
everything we
moving.
could to support the economy
options,
when
man. I
unemployment was
fucking hate
14%, and the true unemployment rate was well higher
10
than
minutes
that.
go by and they lose half their
and
value.
That, you know, that was rates are low, and now they're coming back up to more normal or above levels. So in the meantime, while rates were low and while demand was really high, obviously demand for housing changed from wanting to live in urban areas to some extent to living in single-family homes in the suburbs, famously, and so the demand was just suddenly much higher, and low. So we saw prices moving up very, very strongly for the last couple of years.
Man, these contracts
So that
ain't
changes
moving.
now, and rates have moved up. We're well aware that mortgage rates have moved up a lot, and you're seeing a changing housing market. We're watching it to see what will happen. How much will it really affect residential investment? Not really sure. How much will it affect housing prices? You know,
That's why
not really
SPX
sure.
and
It's
Spire
I
are
mean,
so weird.
obviously we're watching that quite carefully. You would think over time. I mean, so there's a tremendous amount of supply in the housing market of unfinished homes, and
Fix
as
is
those
tanking,
come
baby.
online,
Come
of course,
on.
the supply
Let's
of finished
go,
homes, the inventory
dude.
of finished homes that are for sale is
Here we push.
incredibly low, historically low.
Oh,
so
I
that
should
it's
have
still
grabbed
a
the
very
dip.
tight
Should
market.
have grabbed the
So
dip,
prices may
boys.
keep going up
That's
for
okay
a while,
though.
even in a
I grabbed
world
the
where
second one.
rates are up.
Doubled down.
So it's a complicated
averaged
situation.
up.
We watch it very carefully. You know, I would say if you're a home buyer, somebody or a young person looking to buy a home, you need a bit of a reset. We need to get back to a place where supply and demand are back together, and where inflation is down low again, and mortgage rates are low again. So this will be a process whereby we ideally do our work in a way that where the housing market settles in a new place, and housing availability and credit availability are at appropriate levels. So thank you very much.
All right, he's done. Let's go. Bye-bye, Powell. Thanks for everything. All right. Now, we have 30 minutes left before close, before we go short. Remember what happened last time after Powell talked? Next day, we shit the freaking bed. Gonna do that again. The longer we stay above this level, the better, folks. Can't get a red candle back to that level. We can't do it. Let's go, baby. Now these contracts. Now people are buying them. Yeah, now that goes up, people start buying them. Duh. Alright, come on. Go to fill that freaking gap, baby. Give it to me. Hell yeah, let's go. Ooh, that would have been so huge, dude, if I bought that dip. Oh, that'd be like another $200 on there. Oh well. Buying volume is picking up. Look at how they do that. They wick it, they get it right up, right before it gets overbought. They cool the RSI down, and now we got more room to run. Let's keep it going, baby. Let's keep it going. It's so weird how SPX is not in the gap, but SPY is. It's so strange. DX. Hugely in the gap. I don't know. Man, imagine I just grabbed two, like, right there. Oh, God, if my balls... Someday I'll have balls that big, man. Yeah, let's go, SPY. Break that high, baby. Come on. Ooh, we break that high. Look at the volume. Look at the volume. Yes. Get the fuck up there, baby. Yeah. Oh, it's just smooth sailing from here, folks. I might as well just step away at this point. Do I hold one of these overnight and just leave a free runner? Alright, somehow I grabbed two, but now my P&L is lower than what it was last time I was up here. That's the magic of options with IV and whatnot. Theta, you know. The usual. Get those shorts to cover. Get them shorts to cover. See, look at this. I mean, come on. Bounce right off support. Just the perfect bounce off support. What's that mean? We're gonna see 4K again on SPX someday? Maybe. Maybe. Who knows? You know we're ripping through the close. You know it's just gonna rip in the close. Market likes that. Market likes when Powell comes out and he actually says, yeah, inflation is bad. Duh, we don't want a Fed that's like, oh, inflation's not too bad, soft landing. We want a Fed that's real. Comes out and says what the hell is going on. Look at that, the market is clearly happy about it. Oh, let's go, baby, let's go. Boom. SPX, get up in that fucking gap, baby. Come on. This is just way too easy. Let's go. Ho! I see no reason to sell here. Got no reason to take profit here, boys. Still pushing, we're still doing it. Push. Oh my gosh, look at the volume on these, dude. They're getting crazy up here. VIX is dying. This is beautiful. Oh, baby. The gap? Oh yeah, we in the gap. SPY's in the gap, but SPX isn't in the gap. I don't get that. Not smart enough to know the difference. Oh, is SPX gonna bounce right off of that? Oh no. Alright, well, that's what to watch. Getting overbought. They're gonna give us a little choppy chop again. Holy shit, dude. Is this really gonna chop down? Nah. Nah. Gotta love options some days, man. Look at the value of those just tank. It goes down a little bit and they just fucking bleed. Alright, where's this candle gonna close? Is it really gonna bounce off the gap on SPX? Is that the issue here? Holy shit, dude. That really it? That was it? That was the rip? Now it's dip? Gotta wait and see what this candle closes. I don't wanna just get scared out on one red candle. There's no way, dude. There's no fucking way. We're just gonna get one big red dingus to frig it all up. Moral of the story, don't get greedy. God damn it. Unfucking real. Unreal. Spy's really gonna do this? Huh? You really gonna do this, Spy? You playing games? Way, bro. Oh my god! Just market games, or are we actually gonna break through that level again? Yeah. Alright, I'm out. Oh, good God. Oh my God. This is nauseating. I cannot believe SPY's doing this. Straight up and straight down. Oh, good God in heaven. Or I can trust the system. We did break it. System says go long. I can't fucking believe this. Oh my gosh. I literally watched $280 in profits vanish. That's a rough one there. That is rough. I mean, reasoning, we were heading for the gap fill, but it looks like they just stopped SPX right smack dab, literally perfectly. 38.38, high this. 38.37, like right at the gap. That's what it looks like they did. So, guess they don't want the gap to fill. Sold it at the gap. Classic. Guess that's where I should have, that's where some people load up on calls, is when they're going for the gap. But in this market, you can't trust it. Oh, good God almighty. This is so bad. How is SPY doing this? Oh my God. And I'm out. I'll take a $20 loss. I said I'm out twice now. Where is it, the 21? Comically getting chopped around now. This is so bad. I know they do this to idiots like me on purpose. Like, this is just maximum pain. Hey, we're making higher highs and higher lows, so it's like, who knows, but this is abysmal. I mean, like, just straight up, straight down, straight up, straight down. believe they bounce it off that level twice, dude. That's crazy. Can't even give us a break of that. Can't just chop us a little bit and then go up? No, no, no. It's gotta do the other. Fix the spiking. Spikes. People don't like spikes. I don't want to put a stop on these because I know they'll get triggered by this ridiculous upcoming movement here in 10 seconds. Alright, close this above 380. Can we go back up? Retake the 9. And it's dumping. Oh my god, bro. This is some brutal shit I'm experiencing today, man. I know other people are in this too, but this is terrible. This is what happens when you don't take profits in this market. They just immediately vanish. They're gone. Minus 80. Fuck, man. God, I'm so angry. Fuck. That's what happens, man. I should go back in time and give myself a slap right in the face. Stupid shit I did today. They just wouldn't let us have this level. They just couldn't do it. pain to everyone involved. Today, all traders. Oh my god. Go up and down $5, man. This is just a scalper. Only a scalper. Only scalpers in this market. Holy shit. Fuck. Buying here towards the close, maybe? Probably not. At this point, everyone's already taken their profits. I'm the only one left holding calls. Test VWAP and bounce. Who knows? Crazier shit's happened. Thought the Bulls are in control today. Not today though. And he bounced, baby. Bounce for daddy here. Point four. Just gonna be early candle buyers and then it wicks and dies. Point 0.45, 0.44. And now the volume's like slowing down quite a bit. That's not a good sign. And it goes back down. Okie dokie then, I've seen enough. That is the story of how I fucked up FOMC day. Oh, maybe? Spy? God damn it. Come on. Come on, baby. With arms wide open. Apple's doing things. It's kind of going up a little. Definitely helps. Get out of these in 3 minutes. Fuck, man, it's not happening. It ain't happening. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I hate it. Actually, any buyers right now or no? Probably not. Dumb question, I know. Dumb question. Let it break through that. And it's going down. Well, this is a good example. I can look back at this a couple years from now and like, yep, remember when you were up like 250 and you didn't just take profit, you just held because you're an idiot? Yeah, this is what happens because we're in a bear market, so bears can just show up and destroy the green in a moment's notice. And that's the way it goes. She goes. Rip right up in the close and I can ditch out of these as a tiny little loss. Baby. Probably not. That blows.